Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Huntington Woods and Rackham Golf Course for this very important afternoon here in honor of Mr. Ben Davis and to some extent also in honor of Rackham Golf Course. Myself and I'm Jules Olsman. I'm a Huntington Woods City Commissioner. On behalf of myself, our Mayor Bob Paul, and my other colleagues, Jeff Jenks and Joe Roselle, we welcome you here to the city of Huntington Woods and to Rackham. So you're going to hear more about these things in a few minutes from various speakers, but I just want to take a minute to tell you that we're here today to dedicate a historic monument, a historic plaque in honor of Ben Davis at a very historic place, and to some extent at a very historic place in time. And this is an honor that's long overdue, and I can tell you that securing the plaque and the funding for it was very, very much at the effort of Mr. Hank Berry, our city code enforcement officer, who you can see up there tying it up so we don't get a ticket for some code violation. But this golf course brings together many historic figures in Michigan history. So in the early 1900s, Horace Rackham was a young lawyer in the city of Detroit. He usually represented small businesses. One day somebody comes to him and says, well, we want you to draw up papers for this company. It's called Ford Motor Company. It's okay. Then somebody says to him, well, you ought to invest in the golf course. You ought to invest in Ford Motor Company. And he said, okay. He didn't have any money. They said, well, borrow it. So he goes to the bank to borrow money, and the banker he meets with tells him, forget it, kid. The horse is here to stay. The automobile is just a fad. Bad investment, don't do it. So Horace Rackham, of course, invests in Ford, does very well, and then in the about 1914-15 vintage, goes down to another storied place, which is linked to Rackham, and that's Pinehurst in North Carolina, which at the time was actually kind of a health spa owned by the Tufts family from Boston. You've all heard of Tufts University. That was they were, I think, in some sort of pharmaceutical type business at the time, and they bought up thousands and thousands of acres in Pinehurst to create a spa basically for their employees, to give them a place to go for health respite. So he goes down there because he wants to learn he's down there for his health, but he finds out about golf, and he finds out about a gentleman named Alex Ross, who he starts taking golf lessons from, and Alex Ross happens to be the brother of Donald Ross, who was the designer of Rackham, not just Rackham, but multiple other premier golf courses in Michigan and around the country. Basically, Donald Ross is one of the premier golf architects of the 20th century. So Rackham comes back. He says, well, I want to do something big. I'm going to buy up this property, because he was already on the Detroit Zoo Zoologic Society board, and he said, I'm going to buy up this property, we're going to develop a golf course, Donald Ross is going to design it, and I'm going to give it to the city of Detroit. So that's how Rackham came to be and opened officially in 1925. So we're approaching the 100th anniversary of it. So Ben Davis is the other historic component of this, and I say it component in terms of somebody who cast a long positive shadow not only on Rackham but on the game of golf. He comes to work at Rackham after having worked at a driving range in Ferndale, and eventually becomes the head professional here, and he became one of the first African-American golf head professionals in the country. And he was the head professional here, as you'll hear in a few minutes from others, that many people who are very notable came here to play. Joe Louis, heavyweight boxer, at the height of his fame, he couldn't play golf wherever he wanted. He couldn't join a private club, but he was welcome at Rackham, and Mr. Lewis and numerous other people like him came here, and this became their home. And so this is a very, very historic place that we're at, and like I said, at a very historic time in history. So what I want to do now is give you a list of some of the speakers that we have here today and some of our guests that are here. First of all, can't miss them. We have Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist is here. We have our state representative Regina Weiss, who I did see, she's here. We have Mayor Bob Paul from Huntington Woods. I know she's coming is Marion McClellan. She is here from the city of Oak Park. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We of course have Mr. David Coulter, who is the county executive for Oakland County. We have Mr. Robert Wittenberg, who is our county treasurer and is also getting ready to tee off in a league at 4:30. He spared us wearing shorts. I know that Charlie Cavell, our county commissioner, is supposed to be here, as is Dave Woodward. I haven't seen, oh, he is here. Hi, Charlie. I have not seen, there's an individual who I invited. It's Mr. Anthony Sharp, who is the caddy superintendent at the Detroit Golf Club. And the reason I asked him to be here is because Horace Rackham was also responsible for purchasing the land upon which a great portion of the Detroit Golf Club is located. And Mr. Sharp is involved as the caddy superintendent in helping dozens and dozens and dozens of kids every year, you know, improve themselves and improve their lives, and in many instances secure college scholarships. He has a very important role, and I did invite him. He may show up here yet. So we also have there's several other people I want to introduce. Karen Peak, who is from Signet Golf. She's the CEO. She's the big cheese here at Rackham and a former golf professional, I believe. Also a student of Ben Davis, I believe, as was my wife Barbara, who's here. This is the first place she came to try to learn how to play golf when I encouraged her, and she wasn't interested in taking lessons or suggestions from me, adopting the correct line: never take a lesson from someone you can beat. So we have Mr. Sean Thomas, who is here. Very good. Who's Mr. Davis's family, representing Mr. Davis's family. We have Mr. Lee Frackleton and his wife, who are here. They are representing the Rackham family. I haven't forgotten Haley Stevens. She wasn't on the list, but I also want to introduce our great Congresswoman, Haley Stevens, who came here today to be with us. And of course, as I already introduced, Hank Berry. We also have and I've introduced our city commissioners. We have Robert Shoemaker, who's the CFO of the Detroit Zoological Society. We have Amanda Hanlon, who's Chief of Staff for the Detroit Zoological Society. And we also have Mr. Brian Egan, who is the executive producer and the head of studio productions for the Henry Ford Museum. So at this point in time, Dave, do you want to do a proclamation? We have a proclamation from Oakland County, so we're going to kind of insert our county executive here. Never turn the county executive down when he says, "Can I speak?" I've learned that. So anyway, there you go, Dave Coulter.
Thank you, and I will be brief. I wasn't on the lineup, but when I read the story of Ben Davis, it was really inspiring, and I hope it inspires all of us, and I hope this plaque continues that inspiration that he was to all of us. He really was a groundbreaking figure. Today we talked a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how important it is, but when he started in golf, that wasn't the case. It took him 30 years before he could get into the Michigan PGA from the time he started playing golf. He broke barriers, and then he was the first person to run a municipal golf course, the first African-American person to run a municipal golf course in the entire country. I can only imagine what it had to be like for him on certain days and in certain environments where he probably wasn't very welcome. But in our world, here in Michigan and here in Oakland County, I know this is a city park and it's a beautiful one, but we're happy to have it here in Oakland County. But he's kind of our Jackie Robinson of golf, frankly. And we respect that and we honor that. And I just wanted to give, I know his great nephew is here, and I'd like to present his family with a proclamation on behalf of Oakland County by how proud we are of Mr. Davis, the ceilings he broke, the barriers he broke, and the legacy that he left. So from us to your family, thank you very much. You're gonna, Jules, come on over here and we'll just get a quick pic if you don't mind. You can be in the middle, sir. And the mayor too? We'll
Always
just,
get the mayor. Always get the mayor.
oh, you see this next time.
All right, good. Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thanks again, everyone, for coming out this afternoon. I wanted to give a short history lesson on Horace and Mary Rackham. Some of this, Jules beat me to the punch and stole a few of my comments, so if you hear a repeat, that's why. 100 years ago, Horace and Mary Rackham bought 150 acres of land at the corner of 10 Mile and Woodward in what is today Huntington Woods. Going back a little further, as Jules told us, in 1903, Horace Rackham, who was an attorney, was asked by his neighbor to draw up the corporation papers for his fledgling automobile company. Henry Ford also persuaded him to invest $5,000 in his new company. That initial investment of 100 shares proved to be a life changer for the Rackhams. A few years later, Horace retired from practicing law, and the Rackhams began their new philanthropic career. Amongst their many donations to the greater Detroit region, they donated 12 acres of land to the Detroit Zoological Society. Of those 150 acres they bought, and the rest of the property they developed the Rackham Golf Course. Horace didn't even take up the game of golf until he was in his mid-50s, while recuperating from poor health in Pinehurst, North Carolina. That's where he met Alex Ross, a professional golfer who gave the Rackhams their first golf lessons. A couple of years later, in 1916, Rackham persuaded Alex Ross to become the summer pro at Detroit Golf Club, where he was serving as president. It was that friendship that would bring Alex's brother, the famous golf course designer Donald Ross, to Michigan to design and oversee the building of Rackham Golf Course. Rackham hired architect Niels Chester Sorensen to design the arts and crafts style clubhouse with a sweeping veranda and asymmetrical facades. The precision of construction, strong materials, and attention to details, including decorative Wabic tile and handcrafted luminaires, led the Detroit News to say the clubhouse was one of the most pretentious structures of its kind in the district. Although the course was finished in 1923, Mr. Rackham didn't allow play until the turf could withstand the wear and tear of a public golf course. It was opened on May 19, 1925. John C. Lodge, then a Detroit city councilman and later Detroit mayor, heralded it as the most magnificent gift the city had ever received. The Detroit Times said it is regarded by experts as the finest public links in the United States, if not the world. Green fees at the time to play were $1 for 18 holes and 50 cents for twilight golf. The Rackhams donated it to the city of Detroit for the express purpose of allowing all persons to play it, black and white, rich and poor, male and female. This was an act of kindness unfathomed in that time. To understand the importance of Rackham, one must understand what life was like for an African-American golfer for most of the last century. It was donated with the understanding that it was open to all people, regardless of race or gender. This was at a time when blacks were not only barred from golf courses, they were prohibited from buying houses in white neighborhoods and were forced to use separate sections of restaurants, theaters, public restrooms, buses, and other facilities. Rackham Golf Course and the Detroit Zoo were also pivotal in the development of the city of Huntington Woods, and its importance cannot be underplayed. Our city literally grew up around the popular golf course. Lots were sold to prospective residents by realtors touting the uniqueness of Huntington Woods, with both a new zoological park and a state-of-the-art municipal golf course. The city developed with high-quality housing at premium prices that prospective purchasers were willing to pay for those amenities, and that continues to this day. To continue the story of Rackham Golf Course, I'm proud to introduce our next speaker. He started his career as a software engineer for Microsoft, worked as a community organizer and director of new media for the Center for Community Change, and later worked for MoveOn.org in Washington, D.C. as a national campaign director. In 2014, he moved back to Detroit, working for city government as Director of Innovation and Emerging Technology. He created the Improved Detroit smartphone app that allows residents to report issues for the city to address. He then served as founding executive director as the Center for Social Media Responsibility within the University of Michigan School of Information. In 2018, he joined Governor Whitmer, who, on a side note, has a personal connection to Huntington Woods, as her grandparents lived here in Huntington Woods, and her grandfather, William A. Hanna, served on the city commission from 1955 to 1964. He joined the winning gubernatorial ticket in 2018, and they were re-elected by a wide margin in 2022. When I'm standing with him on stage, it's one of the few people that I feel short with. Please join me in welcoming the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Michigan, Garland Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is excellent to, I think, for the residents of Huntington Woods to live in a city with a regular-sized mayor. It's incredible. This really is an opportunity to celebrate American history and to celebrate Black history. The story of all of our communities here around Detroit, around Southeast Michigan, around our entire state, is a story of a set of people who made the choices, maybe not on the first day, but on the next day, to include more people in experience and opportunity. And when Governor Gretchen Whitmer and I, as we have the really humbling opportunity to serve the people of the state of Michigan, we take that opportunity really seriously, to think about what kinds of choices we can make to expand access to opportunity, to create new experiences for people, to open doors that have been shut in people's faces. And the story and the development of this course upon which we stand, the context that created it, how it became a public resource, and ultimately how it created amazing experiences for people of all walks of life, is one that we should be proud of and we should tell again and again. I think it's underappreciated. But now to be here to specifically recognize Ben Davis, I think it shows, like, his story shows how important it is to honor people who are path breakers, people who pave the way in a very literal sense for other people to learn something, who paved the way for people to enjoy something, who paved the way for people to build relationships and connections that literally were not legally possible in other public accommodations. When we think of all of the folks who play golf, their experience is different because of what happened at this golf course. Think of the people who were inspired by the first head golf professional at a course in Michigan. I think about the men that taught my father how to play golf. My dad came to golf when he was in his late 30s. And he learned from elder Black men who lived on our block on the east side of Detroit. Who do you think inspired them? They literally told the story of Ben Davis. This isn't the first day I've heard of Ben Davis, or the first day I've heard the story of the Rackham golf course. So what I hope is that at a time when we have this marker, like, we need to make sure people read it. You know, we see these markers in many places, and I do think it's important to take the time for people to experience and absorb the stories of our community that create the conditions that we live in today. It really is inspirational. And I think it really will call us to our better ideals and challenge us to find ways in our own lives with our own resources. What can we do to make more possible? Like, this is bigger than golf. This is bigger than this golf course. And frankly, I am just thrilled. And I'm so appreciative of the invitation to be able to come and be part of this illustration of recognition, this demonstration of what makes the people of Michigan so incredible. It is ultimately our generosity that makes this state the place that it is. It is ultimately our ability to say that if there is a convention today, and if there is a norm today that excludes people, that we must reject it. We must reject it in principle and in practice. And when we do, we enable people like Ben Davis to take it to another level. He said it took him 30 years to become a golf pro. 30 years, Jules, right? What are we committed to do for 30 years to get right? Because there are people who were inspired, because he knew people and talked with people while he was on that journey about what he was trying to do. They saw the practice, they saw the struggle, they saw the defeat, but ultimately they experienced the success together. And that, in turn, made other people have a chance to be successful themselves. And so, again, the governor and I, this is one of the fun parts of the job. We get to go and listen and learn about and brag about things that have happened in Michigan that haven't happened anyplace else in the country or in the world. And so this marker is just a small illustration of that I hope we encourage more and more people to experience. So I'm so proud to be here with representatives of this family. Your family has given a great gift to the state of Michigan by this example. And this inspiration, I think, is going to lead to more people doing bigger and better things. So on behalf of the entire state of Michigan, on behalf of my partner in public service, Gretchen Whitmer, on behalf of those custom cut golf clubs I have that I haven't swung in a few years, I'm kind of tall, like, yeah, extra long. My wife wants me to donate them because I haven't swung them in a few years, but I can't give them to anybody tall enough. We got to figure that out.
Maybe the mayor.
Right, I'm sure he has a pair. Nevertheless, so this is something that I truly enjoy the privilege to be here to celebrate this with all of you. So thank you very much, and thank you to this family. Thank you to Ben Davis. Thank you to the Rackham family. Just thank you for all of us for coming together to create such an amazing experience and opportunity.
So we're going to do the unveiling of the marker now. The front side is facing the clubhouse, but I'm going to read the front side and then the back side. Rackham Golf Course. In 1923, philanthropists Horace and Mary Rackham acquired 150 acres of land from the Baker Land Company, which was developing subdivisions in the future Huntington Woods. The Rackhams donated 22 acres to the Detroit Zoo. On the remaining land, the Detroit couple, both avid golfers, oversaw the building of a golf course. In 1924, they donated the completed course and clubhouse to the city of Detroit with the stipulation that the land be held exclusively as a public golf course for the use of the public. Designed by Donald Ross, the course opened its fairways to the public on May 19, 1925. Local architect Niels Chester Sorensen designed the Arts and Crafts Clubhouse. He incorporated earth tone and turquoise tiles made by Detroit's Wabic pottery and decorative brick panels, both in the interior and the exterior of the building. The backside of the plaque that you're seeing, Horace Rackham called this gift to Detroit beautifully greened, smoothly fairwayed, cunningly roughed, and expertly bunkered. Among the first public 18-hole courses in the state, it was for many years one of the few integrated golf courses in the nation. In 1936, the course hired Elron Ben Davis to instruct African-American patrons. Among his students were Motown artists and Joe Louis, who began holding an invitational here in 1941. Davis became the course's head professional in 1968. He was the first African-American in the nation to hold this position at a municipal golf course. In 1940 and 1961, the Rackham course hosted the United States Golf Association's Public Course National Championships. In the mid-1980s, the construction of Interstate 696 removed 10 acres from the course, and the course was renovated again in 2007. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Rackham Golf Course. I'd like to thank the City of Huntington Woods, the City of Detroit, and the National Historic Commission for making this day possible. Today we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of Rackham and the life and legacy of longtime head professional Ben Davis. I met Mr. Davis in 1969. At the time I was a teenager, just developing an interest in the game of golf. I sat on the bench near the lesson tee and I watched him giving a lesson to my mother and aunt. I don't know what they paid him, but he should have received hazard pay because neither one of them had an athletic bone in their body. What I remember most about that day was how much fun they were having and how much they looked forward to their next lesson. Ben Davis was the consummate professional, but his greatest skill was building rapport with people and his students. After I graduated from college, I decided to pursue a career in golf. I joined the LPGA and I served my apprenticeship here at Rackham under Ben Davis. His was a life well lived. You could not find a person on this earth who would ever say anything disparaging about Mr. Davis. And more importantly, I never heard him say anything negative about another person. His attitude was infinitely upbeat and positive, and he never discussed the adversity that he faced. He rose above all the barriers to become one of the most recognized and respected golf professionals in the metropolitan Detroit area. Anyone who had the privilege of knowing him or taking lessons from him revered him. He was a pioneer who earned his status as a PGA professional against all odds. Mr. Davis migrated to Detroit from Pensacola, Florida, because there certainly weren't any opportunities for a black man to become a golf professional at that time. He started working at Rackham in 1936, but wasn't allowed to join the Michigan section of the PGA for 33 years. Thanks to the enlightened PGA member Lou Powers, who sponsored his membership application. Most people would have been bitter and angry, but I never saw the manifestation of those emotions. He was determined, resilient, and happy. Today, I can still see his smile and hear his bellowing laughter. And I'm just one of countless people he influenced and inspired. And I'm a better person today because of Ben Davis.
Distinguished guests, it's an honor and a privilege to participate today as president of the Michigan Historical Commission. A primary function of the Historical Commission is to oversee the state marker program. And since 1955, we've issued over 1,800 of those throughout Michigan. We have one each in Maryland, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and Indiana, and one in France. And unfortunately, I was not able to dedicate that one. Each of these markers tell a small but significant portion of our state's past. When we view them collectively as a whole, they provide a redolent mosaic of the Great Lakes state. As volunteers, state historical commissioners have the privilege to shepherd these markers through the process. We further have the great honor to attend these marker dedication ceremonies in support of the many grassroots efforts of Michiganders to commemorate an important part of their community story. Everyone that I've attended, either there's tears, there's smiles, everyone comes together as a one people, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. The commitment of these small groups, churches, communities, and those passionate to tell their story, a Michigan story, is truly inspirational, and I would argue with anyone to say it is pure Michigan. For over 65 years, these distinctive green and gold signposts have sprung up along roadsides in front of irreplaceable buildings, at memorable sites across Michigan. They have drawn the inquisitive deeper into the uniquely fascinating history of the Peninsula State. These markers commemorate the people, events, and places that define what Michigan's all about. They are physical reminders of our values, our ideals, of service and sacrifice, of tragic stories and celebratory achievements. The stories may reveal scars, and calluses, and wounds not yet fully healed. But in the end, they serve to inspire, to educate, and to help shape a better tomorrow. These monuments of the past help light our way for the future. Our state motto adjures us in the Latin circumspecie to look around us. So I encourage you, as the Lieutenant Governor was saying, look at some of these markers on a driving or virtual or walking tour of the more than 1,800 of them. And it tells us our story is still being written. Today, the story of Horace and Mary Rackham and Ben Davis has been added to the Michigan narrative. So on behalf of the Michigan Historical Commission and the state of Michigan, thank you for erecting this state historical monument.
We're gonna slip one more speaker in for a few words, our U.S. Rep. Haley Stevens.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor to be here with all of you in Huntington Woods and for today's unveiling of this historical marker. And as I think about the work that I do as a federal representative who just got back from Washington, D.C., hallelujah, August recess, and I'm so delighted to kick it off with this event. I want you all to know that as I carry the torch of our Oakland County in the United States Congress with members from every zip code all across this great nation, this is part of the story that we carry into the halls of Congress. And as we look at the history and its 20th century history, and as we think about the work of Mr. Ben Davis and all the Huntington Woods residents who we know trained under him and saw his smiling face, we don't take it for granted. But we ask ourselves, who's the next Ben Davis? How are we continuing to build on this legacy into the present day? Maybe this happened organically. Maybe this happened because the families who erected Rackham and who built this great golf course and who came here to, play golf with their families and to teach their kids, we've got to be building the next Ben Davises of the 21st century. And it takes place in our schools, it takes place because we've got this great southeastern Oakland County and we've got so many great families here today. So thank you to our Lieutenant Governor, thank you to our Oakland County Executive, thank you to our local leadership. And let me just say, folks, it begins at the local level. And the words that our mayor spoke and our city council members spoke today, so significant. So hats off to all of you and congratulations to the Davis family.
Okay, and to wrap it up, I do want to mention there were a couple people that were involved in the unveiling that we didn't introduce were here. One is Bonnie Cook, who was our city planner back when we started studying this for the Historic District, and Louise Wibbleman, who is the vice chair of our Historic District Committee, who did a lot of work to get the designation, and Martha Schroed, who is also here from the Historic District Commission. Thank you. Our final speaker is his great grandmother was Mary Rackham's sister. He's become a friend over the years, and I appreciate his many stories. Is Lee Frackleton, and Lee, it's all yours. Thank you.
Well, I have two comments to begin with. One, if Bob Paul feels short, how do you think I feel? My second comment is, you've heard from a lot of politicians and they can talk, but I'm a lawyer and a college professor retired emeritus, and not only am I going to talk, there's a quiz at the end of this little talk. So, and yes, my students used to laugh too because they had to, or they knew that there was a quiz. It is a great delight to be with you all today for the dedication of this plaque, recognizing the historic significance of the property and the people associated with it. Two wonderful people ended up being my great aunt and uncle, Horace and Mary Rackham. My grandmother, and also my grandfather, and my father knew them, but when I was putting this together in perspective, those are about the only two people that I know that knew the Rackhams because of time. But Horace and Mary thought of a vision and then decided to act on it by creating this golf course and this very nice building behind you. I was going to give you a more elaborate on the golf course and the building, but you've heard enough history. But these two things represented their love of golf. It is the love of golf that inspired them to do this gift and to make sure that all people could play here, not only those that belong to clubs. I remember my father telling me the story that Horace and Mary enjoyed Sunday afternoons, sitting on the 8th hole, watching the players play through. They had no children surviving, and they used to just enjoy coming and watching the public play. And it's this vision that always comes to my mind when I hear the name of Horace and Mary. My connections to this course, although they've been far and few between, now spans almost 40 years. During this time, I've helped with the highway take in 1986 as an attorney on behalf of my father. And then in 2006, I was connected with Bonnie Cook, all things through a client of mine from Virginia who still had family up here in Michigan. And I said something, oh, you're from Michigan, let me tell you about a golf course. That client told a family member, and the family member got to Bonnie through some source I don't know, and Bonnie called me up, and I've been helping Huntington Woods ever since. It was magic. I can tell you that Bonnie and her wonderful team did a splendid job back then in 2006, putting together the information to have this property certified as an historic district. And for their work, I would like to publicly thank all of them on that group. I'm going to end with a little warning. Remember, though, historic preservation is an ongoing task, and it is my desire to preserve this great gift that the Rackhams bestowed on this area and to keep it going for many more people to enjoy. Thank you.
That concludes our program. We hope you all enjoyed it. I hope next time you're driving by on 696 and somebody said, what's that? You say, well, somebody said, well, that's a golf course. Say, it's not a golf course. It is the golf course with great historic significance. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for being here, to everybody that's been here, and very meaningful for the city, very meaningful for Rackham, very meaningful for the Rackham family, and for most particularly for Mr. Ben Davis's family. And what a magnificent monument to have in our city. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.